All right, we're finally in chapter 6. We're getting really close to the end. Now, a ratio is the comparison of two quantities having the same unit in lowest terms. In the end result, there will be no units and no decimals. There are three ways to write the ratio of 1 to 2. One is 1 to 2. As a fraction, 1 divide 2, and the last one is 1:2. There's a difference between a ratio and a fraction. Okay? In a ratio, one man to 2 women would be the same thing as 2 women to 1 man, depending on which one you wanted to designate as first. However, in a fraction, think of this. Half a dollar, is that the same thing as $2? No. So 1/2 cannot be equal to 2 over 1 if it's a fraction. However, if it's a ratio, they can be the same. Now, writing ratios as fractions, but they have to be in lowest terms. And remember, they have to have the same units. 2 parts salt to 5 parts water. Yes, the salt and the water are not the same, but the unit is 2 parts and 5 parts. So you're right, 2 over 5. And in this case, we don't write the unit because if I take parts divided by parts, they cancel out. Now, 18 inches to 2 feet. They have to have what? Yes, the same unit. So I've got to take 2 feet and change that into inches. And there are 12 inches in each foot, so 2 times 12 gives us 24 inches. Now we can take 18 inches to 24 inches. So 18 over 24. The second part of this statement says in lowest terms. I can divide a 6 out of top and bottom. When I do that, 18 divided 6 leaves us 3. 24 divided 6 leaves us 4. And the nice part about this one is it has no units, so they're in the same units, basically. But the problem here says no decimals. So, remember in chapter 5, I have to move the decimal in the divisor, so I have no decimals. And if I do that in the divisor, I have to do the same thing to the dividend. So that gives us 250 over 315. I can divide 5 out of top and bottom. And I'm going to cheat again, and I'm going to use my calculator. Well, I already know that 250 divided by 5 would give me 50, but 315 divided by 5 gives me 63. 63 is not divisible by 2 or 5, and that's the only thing that'll go into 50, so we are done at that point. Now, with the picture, use the rectangle. Find the ratio of the width to the length. Usually the horizontal distance is the length and the vertical distance is your width. So in this case, width to length would give us 3/7. Ooh, the ratio of the length to the perimeter. Now remember this. Does this rectangle only have 2 sides? No. It has 4 sides. And that is a very common mistake that's done. So we have to take 7 plus 3 plus 7 plus 3, and that gives us 20 feet as our perimeter. Okay, and I think I ran out of the camera shot. I'm sorry about that. Now, ratio of length to the perimeter, your length is 7. So 7 over, and your perimeter being 20. And that does not reduce because 7 doesn't go into 20, and 7 happens to be a prime number. Now, a proportionality is one fraction equal to one fraction. And an example of that would be like 1/2 is the same thing as 4/8. That's a proportionality. So, what do you do when you have a proportionality and there happens to be an x in this spot instead of a 1? Well, you cross multiply. So you start with a divided b equals c divided d. And when you cross multiply, and you have to go from bottom right to top left, equal to bottom left to top right, because when you get to inequalities, if you go any other direction, it ends up with the wrong answer. So a times d equal to b times c. Simplify these proportionalities. So we take our good buddy calculator and find out what 45 times 7 is, which is 315 equals 5x. Divide by 5, and we already found that up here. That gives us 63 equals x. Well, this one doesn't look as pretty as that one, but guess what? You can still do the same thing. 5 parenthesis x minus 5 equals 3 parenthesis x plus 2. We distribute, so 5x minus 25. And do not forget to multiply to the second number. And then 3x plus 6, small x to big X. And the opposite of adding 3 x's is to subtract 3 x's. So it gives us 2x minus 25 equals 6. Now remember from my 5 steps from chapter 3, once we get small x to big X, then anything that's added or subtracted to x is the next thing to go. So the opposite of subtracting 5 is to add 25. And that gives us 2x's equal 31. And then the opposite of timesing by 2 would be to divide by 2. And guess what? They want that ugly fraction. They do not want you to turn it into a mixed number. Now, number C. Again, we do the same thing. So 3 times 2 minus x equals 5 times 1 plus x. Distribute, so that's 6 minus 3x equals 5 plus 5x. Small x to big X, we go this way. The opposite of subtracting is to add 3x. And then 6 equals 5 plus 8x. Then we subtract 5 because the opposite of a positive 5 is to minus it. And that leaves us 1 equals 8x. The opposite of timesing by 8 is to divide by 8. And that leaves us x equals 1/8. Now, we can use a shortcut with number D because there isn't an x in this in the second fraction. So we can multiply these two. So take 8 times 63, divide by the one that's by itself, so divide by 3, equals x. 3 goes into 63 21 times, and then we take 8 times 21, which gives us 168. Alright, where's a place where we really use this kind of thing? In maps. On a map of Abita Springs, 5 miles corresponds to 2 inches. So how many miles would 7 inches correspond to? So we put miles over inches for each fraction. So 5 miles for every 2 inches equals, well, it says how many miles, so we put an x for miles over 7 inches. And then we use that good buddy shortcut, and we say x equals 35 divide 2. And in this case, they do want us to put a decimal. So this one would be 17.5. Alright, in the last example, the standard dose of an antibiotic is 4 cc's per 25 pounds of body weight. Find the dose for a 140-pound woman. So, again, I'm going to say cc's per pounds. So 4 over 25 equals, and we don't know the dose, but we do know the weight. So we take 4 times 140, divide by 25, so 140 times 4, and that gives us 560, divide by 25, and that gives us 22.4 cc's. And we should put miles on this answer too. If you have questions, just like I tell you all the time, ask.